Black fatigue has become the new DEI, which replaced affirmative action as a dog whistle a certain segment of people have used to speak in code and dog whistles, basically to gaslight Black people out of their experiences. And in the past few days has become a dog whistle for certain people to not only gaslight Black people out of their experiences, but also use it to excuse their own racism and discrimination and prejudice in this country. Affirmative action was a phrase that had a clearly defined meaning. However, the meaning of that phrase was turned into a dog whistle to signify that there are jobs going to unqualified Black people, when in actuality, the primary benefits of affirmative action are not Black people. They are white women and veterans. Then we go to Black fatigue, again, a well-established phrase that describes something in detail that has now become a word, a phrase, and a way for people, a specific group of people, to talk about and gaslight Black people out of their experiences. And we're not going to go for that, not today. Black fatigue is the new phrase of the day, but it is a tale as old as time. Basically, you take an established phrase with a clearly defined meaning, obfuscate that meaning, and if you do this loud enough, long enough, you gaslight enough people into using this new phrase in a manner in which it was never intended to be used. And that's exactly what is happening with the phrase Black fatigue. Let's talk about it. Aloha, beautiful humans. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome back if we've been locked in. My name is Sasha, and today we are talking about Black fatigue. And not just Black fatigue, but the ways in which established phrases have been co-opted, reappropriated, and used to negatively describe and gaslight Black people out of their experiences. And the phrase Black fatigue is just the most recent example of this. Let's backtrack real quick, because the fact that this phrase is being popularized in the context it is being popularized and the timing of how this word is being distorted and misused, it is not just that the phrase Black fatigue is being co-opted, appropriated, and purposefully used in a manner that is just so disrespectful when you understand what Black fatigue actually is. It's so contrary to what Black fatigue actually is. The timing of it is no mistake. So before I talk about what Black fatigue actually is, I want to talk about, you know what, actually, no, I was going to say I want to talk about the timing and what is happening, but let's talk about what Black fatigue actually is. I want to talk about what Black fatigue actually is first. Then I'm going to insert the video that recently went viral using the phrase outside of its meaning and the concerted effort to bastardize the term Black fatigue and make it a new dog whistle to be used against Black people. So first, let's talk about what Black fatigue actually is. Black fatigue refers to the extreme exhaustion and emotional toll experienced by Black individuals due to the cumulative effects of systemic racism and discrimination. It encompasses the physical, mental, and spiritual, as well as emotional strain resulting from enduring everyday microaggressions, the constant need to prove one's worth, and the exposure to news about violence and injustice against Black people. There was actually a book written about Black fatigue. It is called Black Fatigue: How Racism Erodes the Mind, Body, and Spirit. It was written by Mary Frances Winters, and I have not read it yet, so this book is definitely going on my must-read list. Now that we know what the phrase Black fatigue actually means, let's talk about why it is going viral. I'm going to insert the video here. The person who posted this video, she has either privated her entire account or deleted her entire account. I cannot see the original video. I looked high and low for it. I could not see the original video. So I'm going to insert a video someone took of her video and stitched it, sharing his opinion as well. So you're going to see both, because I really like how he goes into detail explaining what Black fatigue is, why her using the phrase in that context was so problematic, and then we'll go from there, because I have a lot more to say. So let's watch the video.
talk about Shiloh Hendricks, the woman who called a 5-year-old a racial slur. My first impression after watching the video, blow that away, trash. I have to be honest, the kid was 5. I have worked with 5-year-olds for the last 15 years. Absolutely everything they do is out of pocket. They're like little unhinged drunk people. Nothing they do makes sense. A 5-year-old is capable of rifling through somebody's bag and taking things that don't belong to them. Ask any kindergarten teacher. But I realize why so many people are wanting to defend this. Because Black fatigue is real. I think society as a whole is there. We are just so unbelievably fed up with the ghetto ratchet behavior, entitlement, the victimhood, that they want to praise this woman.
Sometimes I genuinely wish I was stupid, because if I was, what you just said would have sounded so cool. White supremacy is a parasite. It latches on and it takes and it takes and it takes. You take our music, you take our style, you take our slang, you take our language, you take our environment. You take words that were created by the Black community for protection and understanding, and you co-opt them. Because what the hell is Black fatigue? It's a thing. Black fatigue is a real phenomenon, a real scholarly phenomenon that describes the Black experience. What you're describing is just racism. Every day, I truly understand how Donald Trump won, because his base is stupid. Don't read. Because Black fatigue is a phenomenon that was coined by Mary Frances Winters, an author, and she wrote a book called Black Fatigue. Black fatigue is the exhaustion born of the day-to-day small acts of aggression or small acts of disrespect a Black person endures. Racism. The fatigue of Black people by way of 400 plus years of racism and white supremacy. One population of people through centuries of chattel slavery. After that, they go to Black codes and Jim Crow. After that, they go to segregation. After that, they go to 40 plus years of the war on drugs, police brutality, the school to prison pipeline, etc., etc., etc. In 2025, we are sitting under a president that is trying to roll back everything we fought for over the last 400 years. So yeah, we're tired. I want to make it clear that Black fatigue is not being tired of being Black. It is being tired of the racism that comes with being Black. And again, y'all don't read. Here's an article published by medical doctors in the American Heart Association Journal that describes structural racism as a fundamental driver of health disparities. Black people, due to the centuries of racism and white supremacy that we have experienced in America, contributes to Black fatigue and a numerous amount of health disparities. A drop in quality of life, a drop in life expectancy, more susceptibility to diseases, COVID-19, heart disease, etc., etc., etc. We're not even going to get into the fact that you use the situation where a white woman called an autistic Black child the N-word as a way to get this stupid ass point off. Nah, we ain't going for that.
In response to a 5-year-old being called a racial slur, this woman decided to say that, oh, white people just don't care, essentially, or I don't care, or we don't care, whoever this we, she was talking about, they don't care because they are experiencing Black fatigue. And instead of her to speak about Black fatigue, again, in terms of the cumulative effects of discrimination, racism, prejudice, redlining, microaggressions, what a lot of Black people have to deal with on a daily basis, day in, day out, for years, their entire existence in this country, and how those experiences can take a toll on them physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. She instead chooses to respond to a 5-year-old Black boy being called a racial slur. How she chooses to instead respond is to say that white people, she, we, whomever, are just unable to care because they are tired of hearing about all the ways in which Black people experience racism in this country, discrimination and prejudice. And she is just so tired of hearing the whining and the sob stories. And the thing is, while most sane people are able to sit there and realize that, just like that guy said, they're able to realize what she said is stupid, and she might genuinely be a stupid person as well. Most sane people would recognize that right off the bat. There were instead people agreeing with her, and other white people took this as their opportunity, and some non-Black people of color took this as their opportunity to talk about the ways in which they are sick and tired of hearing Black people share their experiences in this country. Let's go back to the timing, because her using that phrase, Black fatigue, in this moment is not by mistake. Ever since the election, there has been a concerted effort from Team MAGA and other agitators to provoke and bait Black people into a response after Black people as a collective basically said, hey, we're resting. You know what? We tried to save y'all. We voted and we did what we could do. and y'all don't want to listen, and y'all don't want to get in line and get information and figure this out as a country, fine. We are done. And Black people have mostly been done since the election. Black people as a collective in America, Black Americans, and Black people of the diaspora as well, collectively said, you know what? We're rested. We're over here trying to learn the Tamiya dance, which I still haven't learned it to this day. And unless somebody teaches me in person, I'm just not learning the dance. There are too many steps. There's a whole quarter turn or 3/4 turn. There's a lot going on. But basically, Black people said, you know what? I'm good. I'm good, love. Y'all enjoy. And ever since that moment, I have personally noticed there has been a concerted effort by agitators and people who are so used to Black people in this country willingly giving their time, energy, and labor to protest and speak out against injustices going on in this country. They are so used to Black people using their time, energy to talk about these things that there has been a collective void in light of everything that has happened since January 19th. What would typically happen is Black people would be on the front lines protesting these things. But as a whole, Black people have rested and there has been a void. A lot of people took that labor for granted. And now that that labor is no longer being given, I have personally noticed an effort to agitate Black people into a response. The first provocation came with ending DEI. And even then, Black people, because the vast majority of us are fully aware that despite the fact people think that affirmative action and DEI benefit us the most, we, statistically speaking, it does not. DEI predominantly benefits white women, and in a larger context under that umbrella, especially in the federal space where a lot of people have lost their jobs and their income. Unfortunately, due to this attack on DEI, it is not only Black people being negatively impacted in the context of the federal government. DEI also encompasses veterans. And so a lot of people voted in a manner thinking it was only going to negatively impact one group of people, not caring or even thinking about the fact that it was going to negatively impact them. And now that that's exactly what's happening, all of a sudden it's, oh, we're all in this together and we need to band together and we need to fight together. And Black people have been like, nah, you got it. You cool. Y'all have seen us do it. So y'all can do it. Y'all can handle it. And so that provocation has not worked at all. Then there were all the protests to march and speak out about what was happening. Those fizzled out very quickly because Black people weren't there. And with Black people not being there, without Black bodies for law enforcement to brutalize, possibly attack, and turn from a peaceful protest into something very violent due to their agitation in their presence, with Black people not being there, these protests faded out very quickly and instead became block parties with people requesting bouncy houses to keep their children entertained. Yes, that actually happened. I did a video on it. Check that out. Yes, there were protests. Typically, those protests would be well attended by Black people. However, because Black people, again, are sitting and resting, they were very poorly attended and they fizzled out pretty quickly. I think I saw 2 big protests, and after that, it's been nothing since mostly March. That didn't work to agitate and activate Black people into response and provoke them into reaction. Then there was, I think they ended up paving it over or painting it over, but they completely dismantled the Black Lives Matter mural in DC. And Black people are like, we didn't ask for that, so we really don't care. We didn't ask for a mural. We are asking for equal rights, okay? Like, y'all can take the mural down. Like, the mural didn't do nothing for us, so you can take it down. And that was something that, again, received very little response one way or another from Black people. A lot of us were relatively like, meh. And a lot of us have been mostly meh since then. You know, Black people as a collective, Black Americans, Black people of the diaspora in America, we really been standing on business, and I'm proud of us. And here's the thing, I can sit here and talk about this. I can post TikTok videos about it. Black people can post TikTok videos about it, talk about it if they want to. However, rest is going to look different for each and every single one of us. And just because we're talking about it and having a conversation about it doesn't necessarily mean we're being spurned to reaction or to respond. That's actually another way in which I have noticed some people have tried to silence the voices of Black women, especially, or antagonize as Black women, saying, oh, I thought you were arrested. I thought you were resting. I thought you didn't care about what was going on in the country. And it's like, listen, just because we're resting doesn't mean we're not informed. I'm very aware of everything that's happening in our society right now, still staying on top of the news. Just because a person is aware, though, doesn't necessarily mean that information is going to activate them into a response. So I think that is what is happening. And I think a lot of people are very frustrated that Black people are like, okay, we're observing, but y'all got it. Y'all can handle it. For the most part, Black people have really stood on business and not allowed themselves to be largely provoked or activated by MAGA and agitators and agents of chaos. And it's very interesting when it comes to the MAGA anyways. It's very interesting to me how these people have won and they're getting everything they're asking for or everything they voted for. And they still seem to be very angry. And I don't get that, because it's like, what are you so mad about? Like, what are they mad about? If this lands on their algorithm and you want to drop down in the comments and let me know why you're so angry, that would be very happy, because y'all won. You would think that people who won and got everything that they wanted and were seeking and were asking for would be happy, but they seem very angry. So anyways, there are people who are still very angry and very resentful and are spending their time online, and some people in real life, trying to provoke Black people. This is why I say the timing of co-opting this phrase, Black fatigue, the timing of it makes sense to me anyways, because this is just another way certain groups of people are trying to provoke Black people into response, and not just response, but reaction, to a very visceral and explicit reaction to justify the stereotypes they already have in their heads of Black people as being complaining, being whiny, being so angry, even though it's giving very much the call is coming from inside the house. Because if you have to co-opt a term like Black fatigue, a term that specifically speaks to the racism, discrimination, prejudice, microaggressions, everything, all of the negative things Black people experience on a daily basis, you have co-opted that term to explain why you don't care about a 5-year-old Black boy being called a racial slur. Return to sender. It seems like the call is coming from the house in that regard. You're very angry. You're very bitter. You're very frustrated. You're complaining. Why? You're justifying a 5-year-old being called a racial slur. Why? The fact that so many people are comfortable getting on TikTok and voicing every intrusive thought, feeling, opinion that comes to mind, the fact that people are so comfortable doing it but have felt emboldened to do so because of the current political climate, not just political, but social climate we're in, it is a reflection of the fact that the more things change, the more they stay the same. And hearing the term Black fatigue being used in this context, and people stating that they're so tired of affirmative action and DEI and Black people complaining and Black people getting handouts in this country and wanting Black people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, it reminded me of the Reconstruction era, more specifically that post-Civil War Reconstruction era in America that only lasted for either 14 or 15 years, that lasted for 14 years. And in that, after that 14-year time frame, there were legitimately white people who felt the government did everything they could for Black people, and they don't understand why Black people are complaining and won't just pull themselves up by their bootstraps and try to make a better lives for themselves, that the government can't take care of them forever. Despite the fact that Black people in this country were enslaved for hundreds of years and left with zero economic opportunities. And then after their enslavement and given zero economic opportunities, they went and made a way. There were Black people running for elected office, winning elected office. They got the right to vote. They were building their own towns. And that elicited hostile anger from white people, and they completely destroyed and burned these cities down, killed, antagonized Black people. And after that post-Reconstruction era ended, we then get 100+ more years of Black people being brutalized and subjugated in this country, being stripped of access to basic rights that were guaranteed to them. And these people will, and this is why it is so important to learn and to know your history, because the more things change, the more they stay the same. And everything that we are experiencing now in this current cultural and political climate, it just mirrors the past so much. And it is so crazy the ways in which a lot of people don't recognize it. But at the same time, why would they recognize it when there's been a concerted effort by people in this country, our government included, to not teach history or to control and misrepresent history and to teach revisionist history. And then also there has been an attack, a concerted, consistent attack on education in this country. So it makes sense to me that a lot of people are probably not able to even see those parallels, because a lot of people are uneducated, undereducated, or never learned history. And, that could go back to the ways in which we are taught history, because I find history very fascinating. But the way history is taught in school is very boring. It's very, memorizing dates and events. But if we change the way we taught history and connected those events that we think occurred so long ago and have nothing to do with where we are now as a country, if we could find a way to connect the two and, bridge the gap between the past and the present, I think more people would not only be interested in learning history, but also understand history more. But that was just like my tangent as a history nerd. But that's just me. Anyways, going back to Black fatigue. When I first saw Black fatigue going viral a few days ago, it was Black content creators and influencers who were talking about it. So I just automatically assumed, okay, people are learning this phrase, or maybe they're new to it, and now they are speaking about the ways they experience Black fatigue. And then I started to see that white woman pop up in a lot of their videos. And I was like, something is happening here. And when I watched the video, it was very clear to me that this was just another dog whistle. This woman is an agitator. I do think she is unintelligent. I think she reflects a group of people who genuinely feel that way and have become very comfortable saying the quiet part out loud, or maybe the part where they keep to their group chat or their social group or their friend group, Sunday after church. They typically, in another lifetime before this current social and political climate that we are in, that is a conversation they would have never got on social media and said. But because they have been emboldened by everything that is happening over the past few weeks, over the past few months, they now feel courageous to say exactly what is on their mind and their heart. And we saw the same thing with that era, Reaganomics, the Reagan era. And you can even tie that back to the post-Civil War Reconstruction era. And this is why it is so important to know your history. But anyways, I digress. This is just another example of the dog whistles that are being used socially, culturally, people very comfortable hopping online and sharing their true and genuine feelings because they have been emboldened by the racism that has been pervasive over the past few months. And it seems so silly to say that racism that has been pervasive over the past few months, because nothing has changed. It is just that it is now in front of our faces, and it is in front of our faces because of social media, especially TikTok. TikTok has been such a huge game changer as far as what is happening socially and culturally, things that you may have only heard on the news and you could deny the existence of. When it comes to people sharing their firsthand experiences, what they are seeing on a daily basis, what they are hearing on a daily basis, what is happening to them, you cannot easily deny that. But at the same time, all of this visibility has agitated a group of people who have convinced themselves for the longest time that racism doesn't exist. It's all in people's heads. It's all the media perpetuating all of this racism and all this divide, et cetera, et cetera. It is very hard to deny people's firsthand experiences when they are documenting it and talking about it, and you see millions of people sharing the same thing, and it will trigger you, it will activate you into a certain response. If you are someone who is already hateful, who is already racist, who is already prejudiced, and you lack empathy for other people's experiences. And not only do you lack empathy for other people's experiences, you have believed negative stereotypes about these people without encountering them on a one-on-one basis, without even getting to know them. And when it comes to this woman, I was not, like I said, I was not able to gather all of the videos she posted. She has since taken them down or privated her account, but she is not alone in feeling how she does. There are other white people who feel exactly as she does. They just don't hop on social media and say it as loudly and proudly, or they do. And it's not just white people who feel this way about Black people and harbor this resentment and negativity and believe these stereotypes. There are also non-Black people of color who feel the exact same way. There are people out there who are racist and prejudiced and discriminatory and believe all of these just stereotypes about Black people. My issue is less that they are that way, because I cannot change people. It is not my duty to teach people to not hate. There are some people who do take that on. They do take on that labor and that work to teach anti-racism to white people and try to get through to them. I do not necessarily feel that is the best use of my time and my energy. I don't think I need to validate or justify my experience and my, not only experience, my existence to somebody. I shouldn't have to convince somebody of my humanity and right to exist as a person in equal to them. So when I say it's not that I care, or it's less for me that there are people out there who think that way, obviously I care, and I'm very disturbed by the fact that there are people who think that way. My biggest issue is the fact that they are taking this term Black fatigue and co-opting it and stripping it of its valid meaning, its documented meaning. They are taking this well-established phrase that documents the experiences of discrimination, racism, prejudice, the toll it takes emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally on Black people on a daily basis, the microaggressions day in and day out. This term Black fatigue actually means something. They are taking that phrase, turning it on its face, and using it against Black people to gaslight us out of our experiences. That's what I care about. That is what I find demeaning. And that's honestly what I take the most issue with, because it is so deeply disrespectful, but it is so deeply on brand for these people. The Reconstruction era was the period in U.S. history that followed the Civil War and was dominated by the legal, social, and political challenges of the abolition of slavery and the reintegration of the 11 former Confederate states into the United States. During this period, 3 amendments were added to the United States Constitution to grant citizenship and equal rights to the newly freed enslaved. To circumvent these legal achievements, however, the former Confederate states imposed poll taxes, literacy tests, and engaged in terrorism to intimidate and control African Americans and to discourage and prevent them from voting. What is happening in our society today? The more things change, the more they stay the same. Black people use these years as opportunities to try to make a way when there was no way. And in response to all of those achievements, all of those gains from Black people who white people stereotyped as lazy, entitled, always wanting handouts, even though people in this country got on ships, went to another country, kidnapped and trafficked people from said countries, brought them back to this country. Also, they could have free labor and not do their own work. And the people who did all of the work and their descendants, somehow those people were lazy. Somehow those people were entitled for wanting equal opportunities. And now, fast forward a few hundred years later, we are experiencing the same thing, same but different, levels of disenfranchisement, violence, refusal by the government to enforce equal rights, freedoms, and protections. And the people who are speaking out, the people who are on the receiving end of all of this negativity, all of these measures that negatively impact their lives on a daily basis, these people are complaining, they're entitled, and we don't want to hear about it anymore. I can't. I can't. What are we talking about? What are we talking about here? After Reconstruction, and still to this day, there are white people who will complain about the fact that they are tired of the government supporting Black people. They are tired of hearing Black people talk about the negative things that they are experiencing in this country, and Black people should just pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And I wonder if this woman would say pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps also entails and encompasses being okay with being called racial slurs and calling 5-year-old children racial slurs. Should we stop complaining about that? Like, I'm curious. And like I said, I am not going to spend too much time and energy debunking and explaining how this whole Black fatigue nonsense is absolutely ridiculous, at least Black fatigue in the ways in which she is describing it and using it. But what I will say is that it follows a pattern in this country when people, specifically Black people and people of color, when we are closer to freedoms and equal rights and opportunities, there is always this backlash, and Black people are always the ones who are on the receiving end of this backlash, and ultimately the ones who experience the most harm at the hands of white frustration. What's very interesting now, on the heels of attacking affirmative action, attacking DEI for the first time in history, what is very interesting is that it is not just and largely Black people exclusively being impacted by all of these changes, all of these measures, all of these programs and incentives and rights that are being attacked by, that are being stripped by our current government administration. For the first time in history, it is not just exclusively people of color, specifically Black people, who are on the receiving end of all of the negative fallout. And I think in part that is also what is driving the frustration, because there is nowhere to channel that frustration to. Because like I said, these were the people who voted this way, thinking that it was going to harm people who didn't look like them. But now that it is harming them, they don't know where and who to take their anger out on. And now that anger is coming to who? Black people who are still finding moments of joy, who are resting and line dancing, because they expect what has always happened throughout history, for Black people to be the ones negatively impacted, to get out on the streets, to fight and march and protest for our rights. But now that it is not happening, they feel like there is nobody speaking for them. And for the first time in history, they have to speak for themselves. But because they cannot antagonize and bait Black people into a response, all of the ways in which we are seeing this backlash, we are seeing these acts of antagonizing, trying to antagonize and provoke Black people into a response, that is what we are seeing happening live in 4K. Now that Black people are collectively silent in the face of everything going on in this country, there is an expectation for Black people to show up and a frustration that we are not. And I genuinely believe there are agitators online who are actively trying to agitate, activate, and bait Black people into a response. I'm genuinely happy to see that aside from a few conversations and people going viral, like the video that I stitched at the beginning of the video, aside from those responses going viral and those explanations, they failed. We can sit down and we can talk about things and we can have a conversation, but that doesn't mean we're going to be baited and activated and get out in the streets and try and combat all of these changes and policies that are happening. We peep it, we see it, we acknowledge it, we may respond to it, but we're chilling. We're sitting back. We are resting. That woman and others like her, by taking a phrase like Black fatigue and trying to use it as the newest dog whistle for DEI, for affirmative action, we're fully aware of what's happening. We're fully aware of what is happening. And I do think there is value in speaking out against it. There is also value in knowing when you are being baited, when you are being provoked, to understand what's happening and return all of that energy to sender. And I guess it worked, since that woman ended up deactivating her account. So I'm genuinely happy to see that, aside from a few videos on TikTok and now my video here on YouTube. And I'm sure that there are some other content creators, influencers, or people who are aware of what's happening on these streets, saw it and were like, oh, okay, I'm going to talk about this. Other than those videos, I'm glad to see that for the most part, we are like, okay, I'm glad to see that it is not working. And it is not working because Black people as a collective are fully aware of what is going on. The idea that when Black people are speaking about their experiences in this country, we are complaining is insane. It's delusional, and it's not something that I feel we should approach with any real energy. Again, trying to relate, build a gap, build a bridge. At this point, it is a choice. Over COVID, a lot of people said they were muted and listening and learning and all this other stuff. If you don't got it by now, it is an unwillingness. And I do not believe, unless anybody wants to, if anybody wants to use their time and their energy to reach these people and to build a bridge, they can absolutely do that. I think my time and energy is best used how I choose. And in this moment, I choose to talk about it and have a conversation about it. And if you heard about the phrase Black fatigue on TikTok being used in that way, you're obviously here and you want to learn something and you find my content interesting. So what I'm going to do is use my platform, use my time, use my energy, use my resources to be like, hey, that's what actually this means, and educate for people who are interested in learning. I'm not interested in educating people from a space of trying to defend my right to exist, my humanity, that my experiences are valid and that I'm not complaining. I don't think that is the best use of my time or energy. And I think we need to stop engaging in that type of I don't think those conversations are helpful anymore. At this point in where we are in our society, it is a willful choice to be racist, to be prejudiced, to discriminate, to be discriminatory towards people of color. It is a choice that you are actively making. And I don't believe that people who are on the receiving end of this behavior should also be the people who are trying to get through to the people who are doling out that behavior. I think it's very harmful, and that in part contributes to what Black fatigue actually is. Racism is ever present in our society, and it could not be more present after this most recent election cycle. That is in part what is not only fueling all of this active racism, hate, and discrimination that is surging again more visibly. It is also what is in part contributing to the growing anti-intellectualism that we are seeing in this country. You may be asking yourself, what does anti-intellectualism have with this conversation? When it comes to anti-intellectualism in this country, we have given people, for better or for worse, honestly, for worse, we have given everybody a platform. And with that platform has become this perspective and idea that every single opinion needs to be aired, and every opinion holds the same weight as facts. And people can just say things and not be challenged because it is just their opinion, and everybody is entitled to their opinion. And while you are, yes, entitled to your opinion is not facts. And we have come to a dangerous place in our society where we are not fact checking people in real time about the things that they are presenting as opinions. Your feelings are not facts, and your opinions are not facts. Racism is a fact. Prejudice is a fact. Misogyny is a fact. Discrimination is a fact. I am not going to sit there and have a conversation with someone and try to get them to understand my humanity and validate my experiences, misogyny that I encounter, racism that I encounter, prejudice that I encounter, discrimination and microaggressions. I'm not going to sit there and have an opinion and have a conversation with someone about my experiences that are rooted in racism, that are rooted in prejudice, that are rooted in misogyny, that are rooted in facts, and have a conversation with them on equal footing about their opinion, that there is nothing wrong with their racism, that is, there is nothing wrong with their discrimination, that is, there is nothing wrong with the stereotypes that they hold, and they should be given just as equal weight and respected just as much because it is just their opinion and they are entitled to their opinion. We keep giving people room and freedom to have their opinions and their opinions respected and treated as facts. And we need to start shutting this down and not giving these people any energy, or at the very least, making them feel that the words that come out of their mouth are perfectly reasonable thoughts rooted in any level of fact. I am not interested in having debates with anyone when it comes to racism, stereotypes, microaggressions, prejudice, discrimination. I'm not interested in having those conversations if I'm going to actively be A, gaslit in those conversations, and B, when someone is trying to co-opt in actual term Black fatigue, something that is factually happening, and turn it around on its head, obfuscate the meaning to purposefully make it into a new term to then turn around and deny people of their experiences while making you, the white person, the victim, by making you feel like you are able to sit here and say that you are tired of hearing about all of the things that Black people have to deal with and all of their racism and all their discrimination. And it makes it so hard to be empathetic towards people who just complain about everything. Nobody's interested in having that conversation. You cannot bait us into a reaction. And I'm so glad and heartened to see that people shut it down very quickly. It was hey, I know what you're doing. This is wrong. Here's what Black fatigue actually is. Delete your account. We're not going for it. This is not going to be a debate. This is not going to be a Jubilee 20 liberals debate with one MAGA. Nah, we're not doing that. And I genuinely love the way Black people have stood on business for the past few months. Amen, 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 amen. Racism is unfortunately not going anywhere. And if you find yourself annoyed at the people who are sharing their experiences, and you are annoyed about how those experiences make them feel in terms of racism, misogyny, discrimination, prejudice, microaggressions, if you are more annoyed at the fact that they are talking about those experiences and how they make them feel and what it is like to deal with those experiences, if you find yourself more annoyed by that, then you find yourself annoyed with the fact that they even have to experience them at all, and that racism is still a disgusting disease and sickness within our society and the world as a whole. Instead of trying to shut them down and gaslight them out of their experiences that you feel that they're just complaining about, why not instead of feeling annoyed at them and the things that they are experiencing, why don't you feel more annoyed about the fact that they have to experience it at all, and do your part to make this world a better place so that they don't have to feel those things, so that you can be a force and to be a willful and eager participant in the anti-racism battle and the battle against prejudice and discrimination, not just in this country, but in this world. When things like this happen, it is an invite and an opportunity to be a part of the solution rather than the problem. And if you find yourself experiencing Black fatigue in the sense that you are tired of hearing Black people talk about the very real instances of racism, prejudice, and discrimination in this country, as well as misogyny and the microaggressions they deal with on a daily basis, you are the problem, and you just might be the source of someone's actual and factual Black fatigue. Drop that in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, peace out.